They used to say if a tree fell in a forest with no one around, it would really fall.
Want to try this?
Because you didn't hear it. Did it make a noise? It would really fall. So if you do something today and it's not publicized on world media, did it really happen? That's the unfortunately. Yes, unfortunately. Everyone spoke in the Sikha, this is in the Yuds, how even then people were starting to get into advertisements, into publicity, and in the different media ways that it was done back then, newspapers, etc. The Rebbe said in this talk that if you're doing shlichus, you're doing a mitzvah, you're doing something, even if it didn't publicize you, no pictures of you were spread around, you still did a good thing, and you don't have to. It's not what whether you make it or you don't make it in public eyes. There's not a measurement of what you did. Okay, in any event. So tonight we're going to be discussing the mitzvah in the Torah called mitzvah Smine Melech, the mitzvah appointing a king. And really our question is, who needs a king? Or off with the kings. Why do we need a king? As we know, we're now living in a time where, in essence, we don't have kings. We have a queen, but for all intents and purposes, she's powerless. So the concept of a king is gone. It's obsolete. It doesn't exist anymore. In those countries that still have them, or Japan as an emperor, but it's more for formality purposes. Great Britain has a queen. It's for formality purposes. We don't know the concept anymore of a king and what it is. The last real king. What was the last real king that had full control? Anyone know? No, not dictator. Not dictators. Dictators there still are today. King. Wilhelm where? Right, he had. Yeah, I know. There was also in okay, but did he have? He was also the parliament. He was the prime minister.
I think so.
Okay, well, anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, in Russia had a king until 1919.
Nicholas II.
He was assassinated.
Till he was killed. Till the Russian Revolution, and where the Red Army took over, the Bolsheviks, etc. And that's really where Russia ended its monarchy, was with that time. And this was the claim that a lot of the people in the world had: let's throw off kingship, let's start, a democratic government. I mean, they had socialism, a different form of throwing off a monarchy, which didn't go in the right direction, as we know. An emperor, correct, but the emperor, yes, but he didn't have power.
Where?
Japan's emperor was, again, formality. He was not the prime minister. He did not run the government. Okay. In any event, so this mitzvah is going to touch upon what is really the necessity of a king. Why do we in Judaism need a king? As we've had kings in the past, and we're going to have a king again with King Mashiach. This, of course, the relation of this subject is, last week we got off of the idea of building the temple. That's what we discussed last week, building the Beis HaMikdash in the Sikha last week. And this week we're going to be discussing that the Beis HaMikdash is built through Mashiach, and why we need Mashiach, and why we need to anticipate for a physical being for Mashiach to come. What is the necessity of Mashiach himself, and there to be a king over the Jewish people? So we're going to first give some background information about this from other general Jewish sources, and then we're going to go into the Maimer from Derech Mitzvah. This is from the Tzemach Tzedek. It's a long mimer. We're not going to do the whole thing. We're going to skip around a little bit, but It's a very interesting mimer that really touches upon all the different aspects that we need to know about this mitzvah. So let's begin. There's a pasuk in a verse in Shoftim. We're not inside. This is background information. Okay, in a verse in Parsha Shoftim, where it says, "Saim Taisam Alecha Melech." Place upon yourself a king. This is referring to when the Jewish people enter Eretz Yisrael, that they should appoint for themselves a king. And the Gemara Maseches Sanhedrin brings a debate of how to understand this statement. Is the intent of this statement to be an instruction when you enter Israel, appoint a king? Or is the intent of this statement saying, when you enter Israel, if you happen to appoint a king, then these are the laws. You can't have too many wives, can't have too many horses, etc. So the Gemara brings two opinions in the Gemara and Sanhedrin. The first opinion states that Shloisha Dvarim Nitztavu K'shenichnas Alaretz. The Jewish people were instructed, were commanded three things when they entered Eretz Yisrael, meaning that they have to do them. The first one is to appoint a king, that they have to do this. The second is to destroy Amalek, and the third is to build the temple. Rav Naharai says, Loi Nema Pashazu, Ela Keneged Tarumos. He says no. There is no obligation to appoint a king, and Hashem is just saying, if you want to, I'll allow it. I'll allow it. I'm not going to prohibit it, but these are the regulations of kingship, of monarchy. But if you ask me, we don't need a king. That's how Rav Naharai learns this, and he doesn't learn that it's a mitzvah at all. In fact, he learns that it really shouldn't be done. We should not have kingship. We should not appoint a king. Now, what are some of the reasons behind Rav Naharai's opinion? What's wrong with having a king? So we know that when you give too much power to one person, that one person can do very devastating things, like some of the Jewish kings did. And so, it's better to let everybody have their own private relationship with God, their own personal relationship with God, without needing to be subjugated to one person and depending the whole Jewish state of the Jewish people on this one person, if he's good or not. Practically, the Rambam in his Mishnah Torah rules, this is in the first parak in Hilchos Malachim, that it is a mitzvah deraisa to appoint a king when you enter Eretz Yisrael, and that this is listed as one of the mitzvah 497 Sefer HaChinuch, and this is how all the poskim rule. All the poskim agree l'halacha that there is a mitzvah to appoint a king. Now, based on this, it needs to be understood what happened in the story with Shmuel when he went to appoint the Jewish people's first king, Shaul. So we know it's brought in Shmuel in Perek Ches that when Shmuel was old, he gathered the elders of the Jewish people, and they told Shmuel, "We want to appoint a king." And Shmuel replied back that you've become repulsed by me. You don't want me. You don't want to accept me. And also Hashem, when he spoke to Hashem as well agreed with Shmuel. And he viewed this as something negative, as something wrong. This is, you can say, the basis of the approach we said earlier, that appointing a king is something the Torah really doesn't promote to happen. It's just saying, if you want, we'll allow it to happen. And then the Navi goes on, and Shmuel goes on and says, he gives a warning to the people, do you know what's going to happen when you have a king? You know all the things the king's going to do. He's going to take people he's going to take your daughters to work in your home, in his palace without your permission. He's going to take your produce from your fields. A king has a lot of power. He gets to decide to do what he wants without asking you. And nonetheless, they said, we want to have a king. And that's how Shaul was appointed the first king.
I have a question. Why didn't they, if they had an obligation they had to appoint a king as soon as they entered the land, that they didn't?
That's the question. That's the question. So some say,
that you just have direct relation with Hashem as your king.
Yeah, what?
Hashem will kill from whom said.
I have it right in front of me. I mean, we agree on the premises that he told them it's not a good idea and that Hashem didn't agree with it. That lashon I don't see here. I have the psukim in front of me. In any event, let's continue. So the question here is, why did Shmuel, what was the issue with the Jewish people wanting to appoint a king and fulfill their mitzvah? They wanted to fulfill their mitzvah according to the main ruling. So if you hold like the other opinion that there is no mitzvah, okay, I understand. But if you hold like the opinion that it's a mitzvah, then I see. So the Mefarshim give different answers. Some say they asked too early, it was before the time, as until then they still had Shaftim, they still Nevi'im, so what do you need a king for? You have other people who are doing the job. There's different reasons brought down. The Ran, however, says, he explains something interesting. He discusses now the function, what is the purpose of a king? He says the entire purpose of why Hashem gave us a command to have a king is solely for the purpose of leading us in war. That's it. A general. Either have a war leader, someone to lead us in war, and that's the purpose of a king. The problem with what the Jewish people did in Shmuel's time is that they wanted the king not just for purposes of waging war, but also to be the judge, meaning to take the place of the Sanhedrin, which was never the intent of Hashem, and therefore it was considered a bad request. It was considered a request that was improper, and that's why they got chastised for it. Okay, this is all in the past. Let's not talk about the future. When the Gemara in Sanhedrin discusses Mashiach, so it brings an opinion that states as follows. Rabbi Hillel states, this is not the same Hillel Azakin, it's not Hillel Azakin, it's a Hillel. Ein Mashiach liYisrael, ki kvar achlu b'nei Chizkiah. There will not be a Messiah for Israel as they already ate him, meaning they already used him up in the times of Chizkiah. Not cannibals, not referring to literally eating him, but meaning that they had a chance and they blew it, and so forget it, it's over. Hillel in the Gemara had a very interesting approach, and interesting for our day because we're not used to it. But back in the day, it could be this was even mainstream, we have no idea. He felt that it's possible for redemption to come through a human being, a Mashiach, and it's possible not. It's possible for God. He can do the job himself. He doesn't need helpers. So it's possible for him to do it himself. It's possible for it to be done through a human being, through Mashiach. And he held that the chance of it coming through Mashiach was missed. The chance was available in the times of Chizkiah. We blew it because Chizkiah wasn't able to come as Mashiach. And therefore, in Mashiach the Yisrael, and the Eibishter is going to redeem us. This was the position of Hillel. In other words, saying that in essence, in the future, we're not going to have a king.
Isn't that Apocryphal though? I mean, we believe that Mashiach will come.
Right, so we're going to get to that. But in his time, these things, we're talking in the times of the Tanaim, thousands of years ago, this was not something that was so well known like we know today. This wasn't something so well accepted like it is today. Not all the Yidgam Gimel Ikari Emunah were steadfast and held of back in the day by everybody. Just like halacha develops through the times, you have a machlekes and then a psak-din. So too, even matters of Ikari Emunah developed throughout the generations. We had machlekes, and then you had a ruling and clarification. That's what we all did. In any event, this was his position. So he held that we don't need a king in the future. We don't need Mashiach in the future. Hashem will rule over the Jewish people. Hashem will rule over the world. And there's really no need for this middleman, for this king. And this really sounds like what democracy is today. That you don't need. Or what a true good democracy is that really every man for himself, and you don't need any one ruler. However, as we know, the Rambam does not rule this way. The Rambam in his Mishnah Torah writes that specifically, Hamelech HaMashiach Asad Lamed, Lahachzir Melch the Yeshna and Shalom Rishayna Bein HaMikdash Gazet Chitzon. The Rambam, when he writes in his laws of Hilchos Malachim, and he's writing the laws of kings, so he concludes with the laws of Mashiach, who's going to be a king. And he writes that all the steps of the redemption will take place through Mashiach. In other words, he completely negates this approach in the Gemara, which we don't hold of. And he says that every step of the redemption will be coming through a physical person through Mashiach. And that step one is to build a temple and to gather the Jewish people. All those things will occur through a physical Mashiach. In his Akdama for Perek Chelek, where the Rambam brings his famous 13 Ikari Emunah, the 13 fundaments of faith, so there he also writes like this: Yemaisa Mashiach, the 12th fundament of faith is that Yemaisa Mashiach is to believe and to personalize, meaning to internalize this belief that Mashiach will come and will not be delayed. Okay, and he goes on to say that you shouldn't give a set time. We discussed this last week. You have to believe in him that he will be of greater stature and honor than all the previous kings. And you have to respect him and love him and daven for him. as Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom and all the Nevi'im spoke of him. And whoever doubts him, or doesn't doubt him, but shrinks his prestige, stature, kafar b'Torah. He is denied the Torah. So the Rambam here not only writes that you have to believe in Mashiach, and lack of that is considered heresy, but you also have to believe that he's going to be the greatest of all the kings. And he says, anyone who says, of course, I believe in Mashiach, but come on, he's not going to be, greater than David HaMelech. He says, as he's going to be the greatest of all the kings, as we're going to learn here in this minor. The Rebbe, based on this, on the Rambams that we just learned, when the question came up of Chalta de Geula, as some sects of Judaism believed, for most it's past tense, but some still do, that the start of the Zionist state is the beginning of the redemption. So one of the arguments that the Rebbe spoke to them to negate this was that the Rambam has a psak din bar that nobody argues on, that the fact that you have many Jews gathering in Israel is not enough. It has to be Mashiach that does it.
The Rambam said one?
Yeah, we read it. We read it before. Right? We read the wording. HaMelech HaMashiach Osed Lamid Lahachzu Mekabitz Nidchi Yisrael. So who's the Melech HaMashiach? Theodor Herzl?
Yeah.
Who's the Melech HaMashiach? Who's the Melech HaMashiach? The Rebbe says there's no Melech HaMashiach and there's no Geula without Mashiach. So there's no Chalta de Geula without Mashiach. It doesn't work. Nothing begins.
So what did they say to that?
We just have the letters. I don't have what the responses are. I have the letters.
No, I mean like the community.
I have no idea. I once had a discussion with in Miluim. I once had a discussion with a very down into, meaning very deep into the Rav Kook philosophy, Chasidishe philosophy, and we had a whole discussion about this. But I guess whatever he answered me wasn't good enough to stick in my head. I don't remember how he defended himself. Just the question remained. Anyways, but so this is the order of how it's going to be. That Mashiach has to be the one doing everything from the beginning to end. Okay, let's now go to the Mimer, and the Mimer is going to take care for us of the following. The Mimer again, this is from the Tzemach Tzedek Derech Mitzvah, is going to discuss what is the purpose of a king, what is his function. That's in essence what we pretty much were touching upon throughout the introduction. We gave one approach that it's for him to lead wars. We gave another approach which is we don't really even need a king. It's just if you want one, we threw that out. But it really remains to be understood what is the purpose of a king in the past and what will be its purpose in the future. So let's go. Mitzvahs Minei Melech Parsha Shoftim. Glimneis Melech Mi Yisrael Shenemar Tsoim Tasim Melech Melech. One of the mitzvahs in the Torah is to appoint a king, as the verse states, put upon yourself a king. In Eitzarech Lahavin begins the Tzemach Tzedek with a question. Remember that Tzemach Tzedek wrote this when he was 13 years old. That's what's said. Almost got him divorced.
What age did he get married?
He hid it from his wife, and his wife was asked by her grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, to show her the manuscripts of her husband, and she had. Alter Rebbe tells you something, you listen. So she went and showed the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe saw it, said, when he saw Derech Mitzvah, he said a bracha of Shechianu. And when the Tzemach Tzedek discovered that, the Alter Rebbe discovered that he had written Derech Mitzvah, he became very angry at his wife, that his wife had betrayed him, as he wanted it in secret. He wanted it held secret. And he almost got divorced from David and Chaim Mishka.
What age did he get married?
13, 14 years old.
So the beginning of the marriage.
Yeah.
This was
Yeah. Shana Rishayna troubles.
Yeah.
These were serious Shana Rishayna troubles. The Alter Rebbe had to promise him. There was a din Torah between him and the Mittler Rebbe, his brother-in-law. His father-in-law. Between him and the Mittler Rebbe. Regarding if he has to remain married to her or not. In the end, the Alter Rebbe solved it by offering to learn with the Tzemach Tzedek a number of hours a day.
Wow.
So that's what he got out of it.
3 hours a day.
Okay, so this is According to this, we must understand, if it's a mitzvah that I to appoint a king, so what was wrong? Why does Shmuel get all upset when they ask for a king? Get upset at people when they want to do mitzvahs. What's the issue? So we gave him already a few approaches, but we're going to see the Tzemach Tzedek's approach here. Also, Hashem told Shmuel, meaning Hashem agreed with Shmuel and said, it's not you that they have despised, but it's me that they have despised. What is all the anger going on here? This is a mitzvah of God. As the sages state in Sanhedrin, one of the three commands that the Jewish people were given when they entered Eretz Yisrael was to appoint a king. So what on earth is the issue? Now that Tzemach Tzedek is going to go through, he's going to explain now what the function of a king is, what his purpose is, what he accomplishes, and for whom he accomplishes it. So we're going to see he has different functions for different people. Let's see. In a Shirish Inyan HaMechuven, B'minei HaMelech, the root intent of appointing a king, Ushaboy Va'al Yodei, is that through him, Yiyu HaYisrael B'Teilim LaHashem. The purpose and function of a king is to gear and bring the Jewish people to a state of nullification towards God. How is this accomplished? How does a king bring the Jewish people to be subservient to God? As since the Jewish people, since all the Jews need to be batul, since they need to be batul too. 1 second, I just lost it. Since the Jewish people need to be nullified and subservient to the king and listen to his commands and everything that he decrees upon them. Shmuel himself said. So in other words, like this. The king is someone who's batal to Hashem, as we're going to read momentarily. And he's going to command the Jewish people and everything that they need to do to be nullified to God. And since they must listen to the king, so they will be nullified to God. In other words, that a king really forces the congregation, really forces the people, the nation, to be observant. Today, people do whatever they want. Why? Because there is no king. There is no one who will give, there's no retribution, physical retribution, for anyone who decides to do anything that's not against the land of the law of the land. So, it's of course, everyone does what they want. The purpose of a king is that he makes order. He makes order in the nation, and when he gives his decrees and his laws, which will include, of course, abiding by Jewish law in the country, then everybody must follow, everybody must listen. So one of the intents of appointing a king is to basically place the Jewish people in the position that they need to be subservient to God, as they'll have fear of the monarchy.
I understand how king can command actions, how can he command a feeling.
Let's continue with the whole minor. Now the king himself is nullified, subservient to God. The king himself is 100% nullified towards God. To the point, as we find regarding David HaMelech, that he was so nullified to God, so subservient to God, that his heart, physically, was unable to feel any haughtiness, any arrogance, to be a aspect of yesh, of ego, the davar ma, and to be held any selfishness to himself. He was like a rock, which does not have any independent movement. He was a complete merkava to Hashem, a complete chariot to God. This is the main aspect of a king. In other words, the quality of a king that makes a king is the fact that he's completely batal to the Eibush. He's completely nullified to God. Shemach mazeh, due to this, nikra melech. Why is a king called a melech? As he is rooted in Malchus of Atzilus. He's nullified and a merkava for Malchus of Atzilus. And that's why he as well is called a king. Now it's known that the concept of the chariot is the concept of nullification. Just like a horse, just like the horse and the chariot is nullified to the rider, so too the king is nullified. He's like the horse, he's nullified to Hashem. Now, through the king being nullified and completely subservient to God, and the Jewish people are nullified to the king. So it's found that the Jewish people are nullified to Hashem. In other words, since the king doesn't have any ego and essence of his own, and his entire being in essence is God, as completely nullified to God, then when the Jewish people are nullified to him, they automatically, by definition, are nullified to God. That's how it's accomplished. So let's elaborate on this point a minute. There's a number of levels here in what we're discussing. The most basic level is a member of the kingdom, a citizen who really doesn't like the laws of the land and really doesn't like the king, but he doesn't want his head chopped off his shoulders, so he's going to listen to what they have to say, right? And malasot, he doesn't want to die. So that's one level. So this person, is on a level of eved befker nichla. He's really like a slave that wants to rebel, but he's stuck. He can't because he's going to get himself killed. This is the most basic level, and that's not the level we're referring to here in the Bible. That's the most basic level of subservience. A higher level is that the nation is really in heart nullified to the king, and they're willing to die for the king. Again, we don't know this, but in Hasidic groups, we can get a little glimpse of how it was the relationship between a king and his subjects. The same we see today, the relation between a rebbe and a chassid, where the chassid nullifies, or is at least meant to nullify his entire being and self for his rebbe. So this really was like that in all monarchies. People would die for their king. People did crazy things for their king. If we want to learn what a chassid is, the old chassidim would say, if you want to learn what a chassid is, you have to look at the soldiers in the army of the Tsar, as the bittul that they had. In other words, that this is something that it wasn't just out of fear. It's not fear. It's because you gave up your entire self for the king. You gave up your entire self for the melech. And thereby, since this is an inner bittul that they have for the king, and the king is an inner bittul to Hashem, so it ends up that they are also emotionally completely nullified to the Eibishter, because the king is nullified to the Eibishter. Now, even on the first point that we mentioned before, that let's say someone who's really couldn't care less about the king, he hates his guts, he just doesn't want his head chopped off, so he's listening to the laws of the land. Even in such a case, even a forced bittul is the beginning of a bittul, and that's really what's explained. We go through a lot of bittul in life. We right now we may not have a physical king that forces us to do things. We have laws of the country, which are not that many, but we have a few laws here and there. So you do whatever you want. It's freedom. But in the times of the king, of course, there were many regulations, and anything that was against the king's edict was a death penalty. That's it. Achas dasay lomos. But nonetheless, even today, we have situations which can enter us and teach us this concept of bittul. And I'll preface it with what's explained regarding Yetzias Mitzrayim. We can all agree that the Jewish people were not devoted to Paro. They didn't like Paro. He wasn't very famous. He was infamous amongst the Jewish people. We hated his guts for what he did to us. We were enslaved. We had back-broken work, but he was our king against our will, against our choice. And nonetheless, it says that slavery was able to be mazakech, was able to refine the Jewish neshamas to the point that we became a fit kli to receive the Torah. To then switch over to another type of bittul, a bittul tasha.
That was the purpose? One of the purposes?
Yeah. It says it was like a refinery. Korah is like a refinery of gold. So when you go through, you ever imagine yourself being that gold that was found in the mountains in Africa, and you have dust all over these pieces of rock, and then you put through this grinding machine. You ever saw the process? If that's a person, that's horrible what they do over there. Right? to go through that whole process of the refinery. It's terrible, but what comes out in the end? Gold juice. You get liquid gold that comes out. So this was it says. This is what's brought down in the Medrash, not just Chasidus. That it's Shibud Mitzrayim was. Shibud Mitzrayim was the Korah Basel, was the refinery to refine the Jewish souls. And the question is, how is it refined? What refined us? We are we're doing terrible things, working hard all day. Well, how on earth will we refine? The answer is the mere idea that a person is forced to do something against his will, is forced to be in a situation that he can't do what he wants, and he goes through being forced into that already teaches us bittul. That already enters bittul into the heart. And this is really, it's brought down in Chassidus that whenever things in life don't go our way, that's really what it's for. It's to give us a little bittul shot. That's a bittul vaccination. That's what its purpose is. It's to inject us a little bit of bittul. And there's two ways of reacting. One way of reacting is to get angry and get upset and fight it. And then the person is, in essence, he's trying to fight what God just injected, is trying to inject him. The real result should be one of humility, where the person steps back, understands he doesn't run the world, and he takes a few breaths, and he understands, God, I'm in your hands, and that leads to refinement, that leads to bittul. When a person, takes the approach of I'm in control, this should not have happened this way, and he gets angry and upset about it, so that's fighting against this bittul. In any event, so this is a concept that we can really learn in life, and this is one of the functions of the king, that the king forced the nation to enter into bittul, which eventually leads to a full bittul, even emotionally. Okay. V'zois hi avodas hamelech tamed liyisboi v'al yodin vo metem Hashem aydei shubatu v'metem atzloi. Void. Everyone says we are void. We're now entering the second explanation. You see where we are? There's one void in the middle. Right here. Void shnei kavanas eidim. Void yesh tam pashut. Void yesh tam pashut. There's another simple reason, b'minei hamelech, that for behind this mitzvah appointing king. The first reason is more deep, philosophical. Bittul teaches bittul to Hashem. Okay. There's a more simplistic approach. That we need a leader. We need a political leader. This is similar to what the Ram said. We need him to lead us in war. We need a leader. As if you don't have a government, it'll be absolute chaos. It'll be the Wild West, where everyone does whatever they want. There's no law and order. And the function of a king is to give out edicts, to give laws of the land. To find just with the righteous, and to put and to give punishment and retribution to the guilty. So these are the two intents. So the second intent is really, really basic, and that's just so you have a functioning society, a functioning civilization, functioning society. Nothing to do with God, just a functioning society. And that's why it's brought in Pirkei Avos that you should daven for the monarchy. Because without a monarchy, without a government, it's absolute chaos. We notice the Jewish people in all the lands of exile throughout the years, whenever the monarchy fell, whenever the government fell, it was terrible for the Jews, terrible. Because as bad as the government was, as terrible as they were, and they were very terrible, having hefkerus, where people can just do pogroms freely without any governmental supervision to stop them, would make things even worse. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, this is what happened. But this is one of the reasons why it says you have to daven the Shleim HaMalchus. The first reason, however, is more deeper, where it's talking about that the king gains for us, he brings us to have a relationship with Hashem. Now the Tzemach Tzedek begins a question in stating that these two intents that we mentioned, the second being just for civilization purposes, for society purposes, the first being for biblical purposes, he says is not necessary is not relevant to the Torah scholars amongst the Jewish people. And now the mahalach of this mimer, the direction of the mimer is going to go on. What is the necessity of the Torah scholars amongst the Jewish people? Why do they need a king? If the function is just the two things we said earlier, they don't need that. Amongst Jewish souls, you have two types. Aleph, number one, those who are not Torah scholars. They are empty of Torah and wisdom. But nonetheless, we're not talking about non-religious people. We're not talking about people who are bad people who are not religious Jews. Religious Jews. We're not talking about bad people. We're talking about people who are careful to the utmost in fulfilling all the laws in Shulchanaruch. They don't do evil, they do good, they do the mitzvahs, even the rabbinical mitzvahs. But nonetheless, they are not Torah scholars, they're empty of wisdom. And the reason for this is because of their root of their soul above. They're not fit, they're not a receptacle for the wisdom of Torah. They're only fit for the action, for the mitzvahs of Torah. He says, as we see, not in this class, but maybe in other classes, as we see, amongst many people, that they learn by the rabbi, and as soon as they leave, as the saying goes in one ear, goes out the other. As soon as they leave the shir, they forget about the entire shir that they were in, and they begin dealing with worldly matters. So this is one type of Jew. From Jew, does everything right, but he's not the Torah. He's not a receptacle for the Torah wisdom. And the second type of Jew is those who have very high souls. Those who are Torah scholars, Baalei Torah, owners of Torah. Those who intellectualize in God's wisdom and His Torah and learn it day and night. Okay, so now that Tzemach Tzedek has prefaced the two different types of Jews, so now we're going to go and dissect. So for whom is there a king in Israel? What is his function? What is his purpose? Is he there for both types of Jews or only one type of Jew? If he bays a tamim on, according to the first two reasons that we mentioned, for societal purposes and for the sake of bittul, it's understood that only the simple Jews, those with simple neshamas, are the ones who need a king in order to make sure that they do the right thing, in order to make sure that they're batal. One who, as we said before, he's a receptacle for Torah wisdom, and he learns Torah. He knows everything on his own, what's right, what's wrong, and everything's clear to him like the sun. And so, and goes without saying that he's a righteous person, he's a tzaddik, and he will not transgress any law purposely. He doesn't need a king at all. What does he need a king for? All he needs is a prophet and a judge like Shmuel to tell him the future, to tell him things that he needs to know in Avodas Hashem. But what does he need a king for? The king, the aspect of bittul, the aspect of to make sure he does the right thing. He's doing it on his own already. He's going to now touch upon it, Tzemach Tzedek, why they don't need the bittul from the king. I said before, the first reason is we said one level of bittul is just simply that you follow the laws. The second level of bittul is that your entire mitzias is nullified, your entire essence is nullified to the king. The king is nullified to God, and thereby you're nullified to God. So why don't these Talmidei Chachamim need this? So now Tzemach Tzedek explains basically that the definition of a Talmid Chacham that we're referring to here is not measured only by his Torah scholarship. Torah scholarship is a necessity for a Talmid Chacham, but it's not the only criteria for a Talmid Chacham. A Talmid Chacham, in addition to having Torah knowledge, is also someone who's completely batal to Hashem. And that's what we're going to read. That's why he's called Talmid Chacham, Chachma. Why is he called Talmid of Chachma? And why a Talmud? Just call him a Chacham. as the Sfardim do, the Chacham. They don't say Talmid Chacham, they say the Chacham. Why is it called throughout Jewish literature Talmud Chacham? That's to emphasize the bittul. It's a student of Chacham, a receiver. He's batal, he's nullified, he's subservient. The Rebbe once emphasized this to. There was an individual who was a Rosh Yeshiva in Yeshiva outside of Yerushalayim, the Judean hills. And he came by dollars by the Rebbe, and he brought up a very controversial issue in front of the Rebbe against Chabad. And he asked the Rebbe if he can give a clarification as he said it, for the B'nai Torah that want a clarification on this. And the Rebbe cut him off, and the Rebbe said, the people who you're referring to want a clarification, but not B'nai Torah. He says, what do you mean they're not B'nai Torah? They're learning my yeshiva. I don't know his yeshiva. They're learning the yeshivas. They're in the yeshiva system. How are they not B'nai Torah? They're in Gemara, they're the Masmidim, they're the greatest B'nai Torah of the generation. And the Rebbe explained this one. That a Ben Torah is someone who is a Ben of Chachma, Talmud of Chachma. And the first criteria of that is bittul. But someone who searches for matters to cause machlekes amongst Klal Yisrael and to speak bad and find negative things about others, he's already missed the first criteria. So therefore, they're not a Ben Torah. Don't call them a Ben Torah. That's what amongst many of the things that the Rebbe told them, that's one of the messages the Rebbe said. At the end, this individual asked the Rebbe for a bracha to have clarity in Torah learning. The Rebbe said to him, you guys are busy here making machlekes, delaying Mashiach from coming, and now you want clarity in Torah learning? The Rebbe gave him a bracha anyways, but at the end the Rebbe gave him a bracha, that's what he said. Anyways, okay. Let's go back a drop, 1 second. Also regarding the first reason why we have a king, and that's to be nullified to God. Through the kings. This also is not relevant to the second group of neshamas. They, even above, in their soul root, contain some separation from God, some ego, and therefore they need to have this bit. They have independence, and therefore they need the nullification through the king. And that's why they're not Tamid Chacham. Says that Tzemach Tzedek comes together. One who doesn't have the ability of being so subservient to God will not also have the ability of being a true vessel for Torah wisdom. And therefore they also don't have wisdom because they don't have bit. And therefore that's why they need a king, in order so they can have the subservience and nullification like a slave to a master, like a slave to a king. And by doing so, they'll then be batal to Hashem. But the higher souls, they are essentially in their root already nullified to God. We just turned to page 216 in the beginning. These higher souls are called brothers and friends of God, or sons. They do not need a king at all. Sons don't need a king. So again, the Tzemach Tzedek here set up, he negated the necessity of a king from the higher neshamas, those who are Talmidei Chachamim, those who are batal already on their own, as whatever we already mentioned that the king's function is, they already have fulfilled on their own. And that's why, so this is really a question. The mitzvah of having a king is for all the Jewish people. What then, as we have not yet discovered, is the function the king has towards them. So we're going to see later on. But the Tzemach Tzedek continues and says, due to this, even the angels, meaning due to what we just explained, that anyone who has any independence from God, any soul independence, meaning that the soul is separated to the point they feel an independent entity, then they need a king for that reason as well. Even angels, need a king, meaning angels are not such angels. That even angels have a little bit of separation, a little bit of yeshus. For example, who can tell me something of yeshus of Michael? Don't worry, it won't hurt anybody. Michal's yeshus is that he's only ahava. He's just ahava. You give him a little bit of gvura? No. Where's your bittul? Yeah. Where's your bittul for gvura? Well, only ahava is good. Only love. Sometimes you need a little bit of gvura. Same thing Gavril. Gavril is only about gvura. So they have this. They have a little bit of yeshus in them, and that's what they need a king to have complete bittul. Let's read this. Even though they are always in a state of love and fear of God, they are nevertheless a separate entity from God. They fear God and love God, meaning they're separate entity, and therefore they have a king, which is what? The level of Malchus. Malchus is their king. And so to all the neshamas of B'riyat Tzriya and Asiya, they also have this separate feeling of independence, and that's why we all need kings. But the high souls, nishmas Rashbi, like Reb Shimon Bar Yochai Ke'etza Behen, in other places, the Arizal was yesterday is also added that they have they had neshamas gavois moed, and therefore they do not need a king. They also have the okay. Based on all this, the Tzemach Tzedek is now going to explain in the end of this chapter, in the last 3 lines, defense of why Shmuel said to the Jewish people, this is wrong to ask to request a king. We started off asking what's wrong. It's a mitzvah in the Torah. So he's now going to explain what was wrong. This is the reason that Shmuel did not desire to fulfill that mitzvah in the Torah, putting a king on them. He wanted everyone to be neshamas of Atzilus. He wanted everyone to be the second level of neshamas who doesn't need a king. You don't need a king of blood and flesh. In other words, them asking for a king was in essence saying, if you don't put a ruler over us, we're going to be barbarians, we're going to ruin civilization, we're going to steal and rob and murder. Or, based on the first reason, if you don't put a king over us, we're not going to be nullified to God. And Shmuel said, no, this is wrong. I want everyone to be on a level that you're nullified to God on your own. You don't need to do it through a medium. So here the Tzemach Tzedek was bringing a proof that the level of Avinu was higher than Malkein. So the point was that Hanavi wanted the Jewish people to remain with a Avinu relationship where you're completely nullified on your own, rather than a Malkeinu relationship where you're only nullified due to the king. Okay. V'hine, ice base. Due to the fact that we know that God did instruct Shmuel in the end to anoint a king, we see that in truth, as much as Shmuel had high aspirations for the Jewish people were not on the second level. They were on the first level, that they needed, that they were separate entities and could not have on their own this nullification to God. Now that Tzemach Tzedek is going to go into David HaMelech. What was the unique aspect of David HaMelech? What was unique about his kingship? And this is then going to lead us to understanding how there's a function in a king that's not just for the neshamas of the lower neshamas, but even for the higher neshamas. We're going to see. David HaMelech David HaMelech was anointed, the kingship, the monarchy, forever, eternally. For what reason did David HaMelech merit having this appointment to be the king for forever, for all generations? It's because David HaMelech was completely nullified he was a complete chariot to Malchus of Atzilus, what we described earlier of the level of a king. The Nikra Regel Revi, he's called the fourth leg of Malchus, of the chair, of the Kisei HaKavod. Okay. Ubir ha'inyan. To explain this matter, yesh lahakdim, we need to introduce. Shemailas Madrigas David HaMelech min Malchusa Yisrael Shemail Mailam and Adrigas Shal Shar Kol Melech. David HaMelech's level of a king was higher and is higher than all the other kings that were after him. Mizarei, from his descendants. In what way? In what way was David HaMelech a higher king than all the other kings that came after him? As the purpose of all the other kings of the Jewish people that came after David HaMelech, meaning even his son Shlomo is included in this. Their purpose was, as we explained in the previous chapter in Perek Aleph, for the purpose of civilization, society, and bittul. So that through them, the Jewish people will be brought to Hashem. And this is the lower aspect of Malchus. And this was not the entire greatness of David HaMelech, the aspect of bittul. Rather, this was the greatness of the kings that came after him, that they were the epitome of nullification. But David Melech had a greater characteristic than this. His kingship was of a much higher level. So what? In what way? So he says like this. We're going to read more inside. Malchus of Atzilus is made up of two parts. It's made up of a lower part, which is just the actional nullification, the fact that you're nullified. And it's also made up of wisdom. You have Chachma in Malchus. All the other kings, what they brought to the Jewish people was the aspect of subservience, of nullification, submissiveness. David HaMelech, he brought wisdom with him. Now, of course, you may be asking, David did? Shlomo HaMelech was the wisest of all men, not David, right? So how is it that David, he personified this concept of wisdom more than his own son? The Tzemach Tzedek is going to address this. Is going to address this point. It says like this. K'masha Kosav. I'll call kiss of the kiss of Tirei b'mir atayv lezukum azikim. Kach David Melech l'Shalim. Hayamanig amoy umashkiach aleim lashpia lehem kol tzarchus and megashmus. It's an amazing chiddush. He says all the other kings, they were there for the function of simply, guys, you have to be nullified to me. I'm the king. You don't listen, your head gets chopped off. And then also internally, he gives them a feeling of submissiveness towards God, build towards Hashem, but that's it. If you would come, king, my king, please, what do I do about my business? My business is falling apart. Where should I invest? Should I invest in China, invest in America? What's going on now with the trade deals? King says, what do you want from me? You get lost. That's not what their function was. Their function was not to be a personal leader, a personal guidance counselor for the Jewish people. And the reason for that is because all the other kings, except for David HaMelech, including Shlomo. Now, that's not to say that they never got involved in matters of the nation. Of course they did. But their function was not on a personal level to lead every single one of the Jewish people. Let me just finish. They were not a personal leader of every one of the Jewish people. And the reason for that is because they did not come from, and they were not a merkava for the higher aspect of Malchus of Atzilus. They were a merkava for the lower aspect, which is bittul, and that was their function. Everything else they did outside of that function was just like I'm doing. It was just like any other person doing. It wasn't them doing as a function of a king. David HaMelech, however, was a merkava for Chachma of Atzilus, for Chachma of Malchus, which means is that he was in charge of directing and as a shepherd for every single individual sheep. And he was in charge of making sure that every single individual Jew was well spiritually and physically. Right. Also begashmis. L'chol nefesh prati be'ameh. For every single member of his nation. Mashakas v'chol dover le'ichacham na'melach she'im asinam al-kiyam ha'mitzvahs. And he brings psukim to prove this point. How he worried about their physical state, also about their spiritual state. So this was the function of David. What was your question? Doesn't say Zva Moshe. Doesn't discuss Moshe here. What was the question you had?
I take it back.
Oh, you never said it.
No, I was just thinking, but I guess it's wrong. Like Moshe Rabbeinu said, I need help. But
How can I
needed
provide?
help, maybe for judging them, but he didn't need help for his connection to each one of them. And like Chasidishe Parsha-Devarim to his Chasidishe.
Right. Throughout the Maimer, he doesn't touch upon Moshe at all. So I don't know where Moshe Rabbeinu falls into all this. For some purposes, Moshe is referred to as a king. He's referred to as a melech. But again, this Maimer doesn't touch upon it at all. It only refers to David and Melech and onwards. And Shaul, meaning the first king. This aspect of Chachma, of Malchus, was only found in David and not in the other kings that came after him. Now, even though the other kings, don't get us wrong, they were also tzaddikim. They were very wise. Everyone see where we are? First one in line is Bishlomo. Yeah. We're about 10 lines from the bottom. So Shlomo was the wisest man. Also Chizkiah was very wise. Nonetheless, the difference is that their wisdom did not shine in them for the purpose of their leadership, for the purpose of their kingship, of their monarchy, of their leading each individual. But by David, it did. For their personal use, they had tremendous wisdom, but not for the sake of bringing that towards the regular people. So while their wisdom shined for them personally, individually, did not shine for them for the sake of the nation, meaning they weren't able to benefit that to the nation itself. Ella but David, this was only found by David liyos in the Neshama Klalis, as he was in the Neshama Klalis. Very interesting that even amongst kings, you have some kings who are considered Neshama Klalis, and some kings who are not. In other words, even amongst a Neshama Klalis, so to say, you have levels, as every king is considered the heart of the nation. So he is considered the center of the nation in some respect. But nonetheless, not everyone falls under this level of Neshama Klalis. Whereas we said before, he's able to connect with every single soul amongst the Jewish people. All the other kings, they rather fulfilled the aspects of the first chapter we explained, to bring subservience and submissiveness and bittul to the Jewish people. So David was special. And you can understand from here that what then was David able to give to the people who were already batul, the second types of neshamas who already are batul and already are doing everything right, as they're able to give, just like we said before, that what they need is a navi. In essence, this David HaMelech for them was like a navi, as he was able to give them direct personal wisdom and direction for each individual soul, because he knows the souls of every person, including the tzaddikim. He's able to guide them. The Tzemach Tzedek now is going to go into, in the end of this slice and the next slice, a very complex, which, if we haven't lost anyone yet, we guaranteed will now. That's what we're going to sort of skip it around a little bit.
You sum it up.
Yeah, he's going to go into explaining how David Melech was the way he was, meaning how did he gain this aspect of being a markava for Chachma of Malchus, being able to be this special, unique king that none of the kings after him, including King Shlomo, his own son, did not have this capability, this quality. So the beginning is easy, just the answer is a bit complex. Let's just start. Bir Hadavar, the explanation of this matter is 5 lines from the bottom. The Inyan Malchus David Shai Begam Chinas Chacham Malchusai. So to explain how David was able to become a chariot also for the Chachma, and they'll be able to relate to every individual. This can be understood through an introduction. Havan Maimer Azal to understand what Chazal says. So the Chazal and Yalkut Shemaini, the Medrash, state the following: Adam Arishan Nasan David Einshal. David HaMelech was in essence meant to be a stillborn, dead. He wasn't supposed to live. So Hashem, like a schnorrer, went begging from all the people of generation, we need some years. We need some shani for David. Poor David, he doesn't have any years. So he went to Adam Harishon, the first candidate, and Adam Harishon donated 70 years. He gave David 70 years of his life. So Adam Harishon, when he saw that David HaMelech was not going to be born, he decided to give him 70 years. And that's why we know Adam was supposed to live for 1,000 years, only lived for 930. Now, we actually have a debate, it seems, as we're going to introduce right now, between the different sources of who was the true donor of David's lifetime, of his lifespan. Right now we read it was Adam Harishon, but the Zayar says a different opinion. The Zayar says about Yishlach on the last line. Shegama Avis Nasulay Shana. Also the Avis gave. Now we all know simple mathematics. If I filed taxes for, let's say, $1 million worth of income, and two companies say that they paid me $1 million each for a business deal, then it doesn't match up. Meaning I should be filing for $2 million, not for $1 million. Well, if David HaMelech received 70 from Adam and received 70 from the others, then he should live for 140 years. So he got cheated on 70 years. That's in essence the question here, as we're going to see. The Zohar says like this: how is it 7 years from the Avis? Avram donated 5 years. As Avram should have lived, said the Zohar, for 180 years. This guy and instead he only went 175 because he donated 5 years to David. Now Yaakov should have lived for how many years? He should have lived for also 180 years. He did not live that long. Only 147. So he's missing 28 years. So he donated 28. So we have a total of 33. Yosef, this guy may have asked a shaman. Now Yosef, who lived 110 years, should have lived 147 years, like Yaakov did. Yaakov, Chasam in Haim, Chasam in Shevashim, he's lacking 37 years. So altogether, when you add it up, these are the 70 years donated. Hashem and the Shafklei with David, Mark of this kind of one. They all donated these years to David HaMelech so he can live. And that's Tzemach Tzedek, the obvious question. V'yesh lahaf. One can wonder. What is this double 70 years that Adam gave and the others gave, including Yosef? Why did David only live for 70 years? Similarly, he should have lived for 140 years. When you calculate the amount of years that were lost, we're talking about literal years of life that these people lost. The Avis, from Adam Harishon and the Avis, then he should have had it all added up. So this is where it gets complex. So he basically explains like this in the next 2 odd paragraphs. Let's see what to do inside of that. These years that were donated were not physical years. They were aspects of their character. I'll explain. David HaMelech may have been able to live even without this donation, this charity fund that started, but he would never have been David HaMelech. He wouldn't have been king. He wouldn't have been anyone special. We wouldn't know about him. Who gave David HaMelech the ability to become who he was? Because he received the different aspects of character, the different advantages and the different unique aspects that these people contain. They donated their specialties to David. So Adam Harishon, he was the epitome of Chachma. His donation of 70 years spiritually represents a large amount, a huge amount of his Chachma that he donated to David. And that physically took a connotation of him losing 70 years of his life. But the 70 years that he gave was in essence the idea of Chachma V'Tzivus, Chachma. Avram Avinu gave 5 years. What was the 5 years? The 5 Chesed. Avram represents Chesed. He was the Merkava for Ava, for Chesed. And he gave David HaMelech chesed. Yitzchak didn't give a dime. Why not? Yitzchak didn't give 1 cent to this fund, to the David HaMelech fund.
No,
Oh, he was Gvura. Says at Tzemach Tzedek, Yitzchak, David HaMelech had plenty of Gvura already. He didn't need any more Gvura. He had plenty of Gvura. He's from Malchus. Malchus is Gvura. Dina Malchus Adina. So he doesn't need any more Gvura. And Yosef was Yisoid. And Yosef also gave a nice donation. And that helps to connect with the people. So David HaMelech, the reason why David HaMelech was able to have all of these, this advantage that we're mentioning over all of the kings, is because he was a kli, a vessel that received from all of these Gedolei and Anakim, giants of Israel.
What did Yaakov give?
Oh, Yaakov gave him Rachamim, right. Mercy, to Ferris. Midas Rachamim. Each one donated what they represented. Okay, let's see what we'll read inside here about that. Let's just start off in the beginning at least. So, Bir Hadavar. The Indian Malchus David Shayabay Gam Chinas Malchus will give 5 lines from the mouth.
From the bottom?
1 second. Yeah, I already read that. We're back in the top, I'm sorry. The Indian. We're by the Indian. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from the top of page Kuftes. Last word on line, the Indian. Where is it? Okay. The Ha'inyan ki Adam Arishan u'bechinas Chachma Ilah Atzilus. Adam Arishan represents the level of Chachma Ilah of the world of Atzilus. U'bechinas Chakim Lebe Chachma Yediyah. And he gave that aspect to David HaMelech. Don't try to follow along. I'm just going to skip around. I'm going to skip around here. Kadei sheyeh nimshach me'alan ba'adamish ha'yedei ha'aras ha'kesem ha'chacham machas t'sefes ar b'chachma lahei b'chas u'lis b'avokli is nimshach men l'dibra. Basically explains that that Adam Arishan donated, these 70 years represent him donating from his chachma of Atzilus that he represented into David. And he then explains how it's 7 and how 70, because it's the 7 midas, which each one is incorporated of 10. This is all within chachma. So that's the aspect that he gave. He gave 7 midas times 10 in Chachma Vatzilus to David HaMelech, which ended up being 70. Now, why was it that these years were decreased from his life? So he explains like this. The Tzemach Tzedek goes into explaining that usually he says it should be like the mashal when you ask someone, can I borrow your flame? Can I light my match from your fire? And says, go ahead. Do I owe you anything? Of course not. It recreates itself. I haven't taken anything from you. Right? So to here, usually the way it works by spiritual things is that also by Gilgulim, it's not that the neshama it completely goes from one to another, but rather it replicates itself. It clones itself, so to say. And so to here, why is it that Adam had to lose out? He should have just cloned his 70 aspects of Chachma Vatzilus and given it to David. So it explains that cloning only works in the world of Atzilus itself. That's where you can pass fires around in the world of Atzilus. But to take a fire from the world of Atzilus and bring it to this physical world, you have to pick it up and take it. There's no such thing as just lighting another one. You have to take the original fire and bring it down. Notice for all also Avram doing the same thing. For all the ashpos that each of the others that they represented, and they donated towards Adam and they donated towards David, they had to physically leave from their level and go into the lower world so it reached David HaMelech. And because of this, they lived their years based on these levels of elikus that they had. So when they lacked them, they then began losing years of their life. So the idea that they donated years of their life, that's the result of what happened from their donation. That's not what they actually donated. They actually donated, as read before, 70 aspects of Chachma, the 5 aspects of Chesed, etc., etc. But that cost, since they now lacked that elikus, their neshamas now weren't able to live that long anymore in this world. I put one person to sleep, huh?
It must be Google. See? She's reacting to the content of the.
Okay, let's skip. We're going to skip down. That was a summary of all that information. We're going to skip down to the next page. Let me show you. And the next page, page Kuf Yod. On the bottom of Kuf Yod, where it says, starting from words Hine Nikol Ha'oros, there's two dots if you see. Hine Nikol Ha'oros, by the two dots. Again, page Kuf Yod. V'hine Nikol Ha'oros Elu Hanemshachim L'maylo B'malchus D'Atzilus. Nikol B'chinas Anol Adam V'Abbas B'Kulam Ninshach B'David. All of these divine revelations that were drawn down to Malchus B'Atzilus from Adam HaRishon, from the forefathers, as we said, Avram, Yaakov, and Yosef, they were all drawn down into David, Kiklalus Malchus B'Atzilus, Ir Malchus David. As the entire sphere of Malchus B'Atzilus shined into David HaMelech, as opposed to the other kings who only got from the lower part. These b'Malchusay Gamkin Beis Min Chachma Nob, Hey Chasadim D'Avram Chav Ches Adon D'Yaakov Zayin Techtein D'Yosef. Well, Derech Mashkas Yeshua, and therefore David HaMelech was able to have, as what Yeshua describes, Isha Sharuach Boi. He had a spirit that corresponded to everybody. He was able to talk the language of every single individual. He was able to know the experience and understand and direct each individual. The Hainush in Rishach Boi Mechinas Klalus Chachma El Yaina, Shekalelus Kol Samech Reish Deus Samech Neshamas, meaning he was able to draw down from the upper wisdom the knowledge and direction necessary for each of the 600,000 souls. He had the access keys to the background and purpose and mission of every single one of the souls of the Jewish people. This is in contrast to the other kings. That the fact that they were wise, this is only a personal wisdom, that the wisdom became invested in their personal spark. But this was not relevant at all for the entire nation. For this reason, David HaMelech merited the crowning of king for all generations. He was a complete chariot for the entire Malchus. Shalom Melech was from the level of Bina, from above Malchus, and therefore he was not relevant to all of this. Let's skip down to Eisgim on the next page. So now that Tzemach Tzedek had explained in the past what was David HaMelech all about, and basically explained how the true function of a true king in the level of David HaMelech has relevance to every single Jew, even the higher neshamas. Now we're going to explain, so what's with Mashiach?
Can I just ask, maybe you answered it, but I've been thinking, like David HaMelech, even if you just look at Tillim and all the other circumstances of his life, I mean, he did a fair amount of sort of sounded like complaining, let's say it wasn't really, but like, so how could he really be on that level but maybe it's what you just said, so that he would be able to understand everybody else's problems?
Well, you're asking that how is his bittul reflected in his tehillim when he?
Well, how can he be on such a high level when he has all this stuff going on in his life?
Like, what are you referring to? I mean, you're talking about the sinful activity. You're referring to
all of it. Well, and I'm going through such a hard time, and how could you do this to me? And that sort of.
Yeah. It's a good question. Remember the rule of the class. No tough questions.
I think you answered it when you said,
well,
that's how he
was able to
relates to us.
Yeah, but it's a very good question. Before you reach the level of bittul of David HaMelech, of course you go through all this. But once you've reached it, there's no room for it. You said before, David HaMelech had no tnuah, he had no movement of his own. It was all God. So what are you complaining about? So what are you going to say? The whole Tehillim was before the Bittul? Maybe. We don't know the chronological order of Tehillim when it was written. David Melch wasn't born a king. He wasn't born a tzaddik. He reached it. He became it. He worked on it until he reached this level. Until he revealed all these levels. So it could be. Maybe Tehillim was, I don't know. Or maybe it's he's not saying this for himself. He's really saying this for the people.
Yeah.
That's I think what you were touching on earlier. Okay, let's get now to Mashiach. So what's Mashiach got to do with all this? Why do we need Mashiach? Why do we need a king? What's his function going to be? Achadayin tzarich lahavin. It still remains to be understood. Mahu Mashiach gamkin yamelech. Why is it that Mashiach will also be a king? In other words, now that Tzemach is asking, in the beginning we set up two reasons for kingship and explained that it's necessary for certain people, low neshama people, basically low-class citizens need a king. But high-class citizens, those who are the second type of neshamas, why do they need a king? And then we answered David HaMelech. He had something very special that he was able to offer to everybody. But now that Tzemach is going to ask, in the future times, even that we don't need. So why do we need a king in the future? And in truth, the Rambam is of the opinion that Mashiach is only going to be around in the beginning. So Mashiach is just there to get us through the process. He's like the lawyer to get us to the victory of the courts. And once it's done, he's done. No. He's going to take a vacation and he's going to die. The Rambam holds that Mashiach dies in the future.
What?
The Rambam, Maimonides, is of the opinion that Mashiach will die in the future.
And we hold by that.
I didn't say that, but that's what he holds.
I mean, well, that's what Chabad follows, right?
No. This opinion of the Rambam was negated by many Rishonim. We don't hold to this opinion. We hold it's going to be Chaim Nitzchim in the future. They're saying that in the Rambam's perspective, even though he ruled so strongly that first he writes that it is a mitzvah to appoint a king, and then he writes that you have to believe the redemption will come through a king, through King Mashiach. He himself is of the opinion that after it happens, we don't need Mashiach anymore, really. It's similar to what it says in what's brought the story in Shoftim, in Sefer Shoftim, regarding Gidon. That once he destroyed Midian, they asked him to become king. That's where that statement is said, not Yeshua. It's said by Gidon. Gidon says, "Why do I need to be your king? Hashem will be your king." Gidon said that, not Yeshua, not Shmuel. That statement, that pasuk is by Gidon. Okay, so this is similar to the approach. So the question really is asking that, no, we don't know that. We hold Mashiach is going to be king of the Jewish people afterwards. What's it necessary for? So let's go. So Talmid Chachamim, when Mashiach comes, all the Jewish people will be Torah scholars. Says Hashem, the entire earth will be filled with godly wisdom. And this class will no longer happen anymore. Nobody will be teaching each other. We'll be very lonely. Maybe that's why it's not so many people show up to classes. They're trying already now to interestingly mitzchus. They're already living the times of Mashiach.
We're going to know everything? We won't.
Yeah, that's the difference. That then we will know everything. Now the people don't show up, unfortunately, don't know anything. And if so, if everyone's going to know everything already, why do we need a king? In other words, all the reasons of why we need a king are gone. The first reason that we need that when we need to get our act straight so we become civilized, we're going to be civilized. The future. The second reason of the bittul, we're going to have bittul on our own. The third reason of the chachma that David HaMelech provides a special wisdom for each one. We're also going to we're not going to need anybody. We're not going to need King Mashiach for that. We're going to have it on our own. No one's going to teach anyone anymore. It's interesting. What's going to happen with all the websites, huh? All the websites. Okay, we'll have to figure out what to do.
Yeah, things could get a little
have a Geula plan. We'll need to create a Geula plan.
What are we going to do every day?
Okay. So too it's difficult. If the Torah gave a mitzvah to appoint a king, then it's eternal. And it's for all people, even people of the future. So if so, then why did the Torah command if we don't need one? Then King Gad and you must say that also Torah scholars will command. Then King Kasha Acha inyan. So the concept is as follows. De be'emes shayich bechinas malucha gam al tamid chacham. In truth, the concept of kingship applies even to Torah scholars. We're in the middle of Gimel, 5 lines down. First word on the line is Gam Talmidei Chacham. Abbreviations, Tach. Oh, the one before that. Gam Talmidei Chacham. 3 lines from the wide lines. Gimel, page 220. Here. I'm holding it up. Right here, look. Okay. Even Torah scholars were commanded in this. But the matter is as follows. In truth, kingship, monarchy is also relevant for the Torah scholars, meaning the high neshamas. Even though they have their own individual and independent understanding of God's Torah, and they don't need to be nullified like slaves, as they are innately and intrinsically nullified. The Inyan. So he says like this, that Melucha is even a higher level than what they have reached. And that's what Mashiach will provide. The Inyan, what does this mean? Ki HaTorah bechinas bli gvul. The Torah is infinite. As it says in Tehillim, that you go from level to level. There's no limit to Torah. You've reached the end of the game. In every single video game on earth, there's always an end. There's no such thing as you continue forever, I think. Right? There's always an end. So, however, in Torah, it's eternal. Torah wisdom and Gan Eden and Elikus, it's all eternal. Infinite. Sheish bechinas badegas and kates, what happens? There's level upon level upon level in comprehension of Torah. Now, in the future, the inner aspects of the Torah will be revealed in a way that everyone comprehends it. This will be done through Mashiach. He will be the one who will teach the inner dimension of the Torah to the entire nation. Even those things that today are completely concealed that we don't understand. Even though we'll have all the information provided to us by Melech Mashiach, certainly he will comprehend much greater and higher and deeper things that than what he is able to reveal. And the kalam to teach the nation. Meaning that even though Mashiach is going to provide us with all this depth of information on Pnimius HaTorah, there will still be levels in Pnimius HaTorah that he will be unable to provide us, that will be above our comprehension, that only he will know. It is due to this infinite understanding that he will have that he is considered the king. Just like kingship down here, monarchy below. Is the concept of nullification. Meaning that just like down here, what do we need a king for? Some sense. We don't need a king to tell us wake up in the morning. You got to wake up in the morning regardless. You don't need a king to tell you go to work. You need to go to work to provide for your family. You don't need a king to tell you eat supper. You need to eat. You need a king to tell you things that make no sense to you. Like many of the laws of the countries, right? So that's what you need a king for. They need to come up with things that to them make sense, to you doesn't make sense. We hope to them makes sense. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But nonetheless, a king comes up with things, ideally, a real king comes up with things that only he comprehends and understands the wisdom in it. And the nation is just not on a level to comprehend and to understand. And so, in other words, the entire idea of kingship is this idea of bittul, where you put yourself aside and you place trust in the wisdom of others. And that's really what all democracy is, because democracy is not that we don't get to vote on everything. We elect representatives in almost every country except for Switzerland. You elect representatives who then vote based on however they feel about 1,000,001 issues. Now, you may not agree with them, or not, you do agree with them, but you're placing trust in them, and you believe them that they know better. And that's why in America, the founding fathers created what's called the Electoral College. They did it just in case. Literally, this is why it was done, just in case the people elect the wrong president. So at least the Electoral College will be able to, since they were elected by the people as well, they'll be able to vote him out. They'll be able to not vote him into the presidency. It's never been used before, this power.
Sure tried hard this time.
They tried, but I'm saying it didn't work. But that was the logic behind it. The logic behind it, because you can't trust the people. The people are dumb, and they make bad decisions, and they appoint bad, and they vote for bad people. So therefore, you need to have people who are much smarter and much more intellectual, and they will be able to then make the decision on behalf of the people. And this is the entire idea of kingship. This is the entire idea of the bit that he's given, that he has a higher wisdom. So this aspect will not be nullified in the future, as even though wisdom will be all over the earth, Melech HaMashiach will still contain a much deeper understanding and wisdom, as Torah is infinite, than anyone else is capable of comprehending. Meaning, machmas chinas du nikam belchlik. Meinem loch shel matrak chinas a bit on a mashul de mile mag bal sichle. Kilo davish and shasich betul tamadas in zarchas of kulismach. Something you understand your own. You don't need the king to command you about that. Shagam belay mitzvahs is even without his command. Nachan adaver. It's understood that you should do it. It's at atzma. The toiv will be be'inov. Elap kudu rak al davar shu neged sichle. You only need a command for things that are against your sichle. Who pili mimenu, and this is something that is above you. You don't comprehend it. Shafal pikin. It's had up good and nonetheless, due to the decree, you have to fulfill it. You have to nullify your own will to the will of the king, because you don't know what his reason is and why he's doing what he's doing. I'll mention there's something very interesting. We find the same thing also in Paiske Halacha. The Noda B'Yehuda, Cheskalando, famous Paisik from Prague. So he was known throughout the world for his greatness in Torah, and as a Rav, as a Paisik Halacha. And there was a certain shiloh that he paskined on. I'm not going to get into the details; it's not relevant right now. But there's a certain shiloh that he paskined on, which aroused tremendous controversy in the halachic world. He received letters from many Gedolei Yisrael telling him, "Get back off this heter you gave. Back off of it. It's wrong. What you're doing is terrible." They held him very much. They said this psak that he gave was completely off, completely wrong. And he defended himself. So first, his defense was very convincing, but not for me, not for them. The Gedolei Yisrael at that time did not accept the defense, and they continued to press on him to back down. But he kept on writing in his letters of defense that he has a secret reason that he cannot reveal for why he wrote this heter. And so this got him into even deeper trouble. Since when do we make something due to secret reasons? And this was a huge controversy back then. But it's brought down that the Alter Rebbe said of him, of the Noda B'Yehuda in general, and of this psak in particular. He said like this: that the Noda B'Yehuda had open in front. The Alter Rebbe said this Noda B'Yehuda. That the Noda B'Yehuda had open in front of him all shvili hachachma, all the channels of wisdom, more than anyone in this generation, of that time. And that's why many could not comprehend him. And then he says, in this psak that he gave, the truth stands that he's correct in what he said. The Alter Rebbe said the Noda B'Yehuda. He's correct in what he said, and not the others. So this is a similar idea of that the king has a tam kamas. He has an ability comprehension of depth that they cannot see. Everyone else can't see. And the same thing is regarding Torah. It's not just regarding the decrees of the king, also regarding the king's knowledge of Torah. There are mitzvahs which are comprehensible, such as tzitzis and tefillin. And then there are mitzvahs shachukim which are not understood, like why shatnez asur between wool and linen, why not wool and another material, silk. Now, the reasons of the Torah will be revealed in the future. Al Yedei Mashiach, through Mashiach. But what he will have revealed is a lot more than what he's going to reveal. From what he is able to reveal to the nation, he will know an infinite amount more. Okay, so the saying how Mashiach is going to be higher than everybody, even from Adam Rishon, he's going to be higher. And therefore Mashiach will also be the king of Israel. Even though everyone now will be Torah scholars, they'll be at a higher level than Shamas, and they'll even know all the Tabei Torah. Nonetheless, since Mashiach will have a greater depth of knowledge, therefore he will still be considered the leader and king. Said before, the leader king is someone who contains things that you don't understand, as above your intellect, above your knowledge, and that he will still have within him. Let's skip here till. Okay, now he explains it al pi Kabbalah how it is, and we're at the end of the page. Al pi Kabbalah hukach. According to Kabbalah, this matter is explained as follows: the Nevraim, the souls of Bria Tzir Nasiya, they have a king, which refers to the lower aspect of Malchus of Atzilus. Shenasa atik the Bria and Michnas atik u'mashal amal masech lo shenamad tarmo kish nagvim and asagas anavim shebiyul lo ilmus biyah ehu b'chinas makif leim k'mashal zeres hamel chala evet she'evet mevatu tzeniku l'madim asagas fulei nikaz zebeshem achsis lo biyah. Okay, aval agabi and neshamas tatzilus. So again, the neshamas of Bria Tzir Nasiya, their king according to Kabbalah is considered, but the neshamas of Atzilus, so who is their king? So the level called Atik or Malchus of Ak, that is, which is a much higher level, that is considered their king. In other words, every level, no matter how high you go, there's still a level above you that is above your level that you can't comprehend, can't understand. And that's why it's considered to you like a king above you. So the next page, where he says, the Shamir Sherish Mashiach. The root of Mashiach will be in Atik, in Malchus of Adam Kadmon. And this is what the meaning is, that it says the Mashiach will be very high. In other words, Mashiach will be even higher than David. So it says that Mashiach will be the case of the king, while David will be the viceroy, Halga Keser. He'll be half a king. He'll be a miniature king. Why? Because even David HaMelech is from the level of Malchus of Atzilus. So King Mashiach is from the level of Malchus of Ak, a much higher level. Mashiach nasa tzasatala insef ba'atzim etzadzeh yeh b'chinas melech ha'yisol gam shetumim chama gam shtalat ha'mitzvos avloi kol mashes galaloi v'lechein nikaravu melech. It's for this reason that Melech Mashiach is considered a rav and a king. Make up your mind, either you're a rabbi or you're a president. Which one is it? He's both. Due to the fact that he's going to be teaching and revealing the reasons of the Torah to all the Jewish people, for that he's called a rabbi. For the fact that he's going to still retain and remain with something much higher and deeper than anyone else can understand, he's going to be considered a king due to that aspect. This is the end of the Maimar. We're just going to summarize it. Okay, so the Maimar began with a discussion of what is the necessity of the Jewish people having a king. Why do we need one? And the different approaches that we explain is we need a political leader to lead us in war. We need a leader to make edicts and laws of the land so there isn't chaos going on, so people don't do whatever they want. So there's justice. We need a king in order so he forces the Jewish people to follow the Torah. We need a king in order to pump nullification into the hearts of the Jewish people, and by them applying to him, they will thereby be nullified to God, as the king is completely nullified to God. And then we need him in order to give over the high level of wisdom that he contains for everybody that is under him, which is everyone else in the generation. And then we said another aspect, which will be by King Mashiach, is that his kingship will be over the fact of matters that he cannot share. In other words, that there's an aspect of kingship that is revealed in your lack of leadership. In other words, he's going to be a leader in terms of all the other aspects we just said, King Mashiach. He will lead the Jewish people in all those aspects, and he will share his wisdom with the Jewish people, but he won't be able to share all of his wisdom. There'll still be a depth of knowledge that Mashiach will contain that no one else will be able to have, and because of this, he will remain on top, at high, above everyone else, and that's why he is called Melech. May we merit this very, very soon. King Mashiach should come, build the third base Hamikdash, as we discussed last week. So this was the sequel of that, and then we can eat not just on Tisha B'av, but also on the 10th of Av. Renner was eating on Tisha B'av this year.
Did that Rav ever give his reason in secret?
No, he did not. Unlike the Rambam that we read last week. Remember the Rambam last week? Were you here?
Give a hint.
The